Hey YouTubers, a Working Man's Pride here today. Today's video is going to be on this vintage Lawn Chief push mower, and we're going to do a will it run video. Now I've already tried to get this thing running previously in the past, and with no success due to this does have points, and because it has been sitting, especially sitting outside for, I don't know, a couple years, I'd say, it's definitely not going to run. They're definitely corroded. But hopefully we can file them, sand them down, and make them come back around, and this thing can get spark. It does have oil in it. I've already checked it. It's very, very black. So obviously very neglected. We're not going to change it until we know that it runs good. Today's focus is really just on, will this thing actually start up and run? Now, carburetor wise, I am going to eventually rebuild it anyway, whether it does run on its own power and stuff or not. Whether the diaphragm is still good enough to run, I am still going to rebuild and replace it. But if it doesn't run, oh well, we can just bottle feed it. If it does, then cool. So without further ado, I'm going to get my tools lined up, and I'm going to take y'all through on how I'm going to take this thing apart, and, well, basically you are going to follow along. Just real quick, if y'all are wondering where I got this from, I got this off of Facebook Marketplace with 3 other push mowers. They all were $5 a piece. So yes, I bought this push mower for $5. Now, one of the push mowers I did get running, and it runs great. It's got the same style of carburetor setup, but doesn't have the rewind setup that this one does. So yeah, this is a $5 push mower that I bought. My plans are to actually restore it. If you come over here on the deck, you can see right here that it's cracked really bad. And then, no, maybe that was the other one. The other one had the bars up here welded onto the lower portion. But this one obviously does need some work as far as welding and stuff like that. Here's part of the wheel for that side. I have a 4x4 holding it up, but it didn't. The rubber part's gone. This right here, I took off the original one. There was a different one, exhaust muffler on here, and I took it off to put it on a different push mower because it was really cool. And actually, what I might do is I might go grab that real quick and put it back on this one, and get my tools lined up and take y'all through with me on me taking this apart. Alrighty, you all. Got the different exhaust tip. All you do with these is you just unscrew them. Lefty loosey, righty tighty. And screw them back in. Now, if you got one like this, it's probably going to be seized. You might have to heat and quench the block. Just be very, very careful when you're doing that. So, if we can get this thing to spark, I might go ahead and throw a coil on it today. I might not. I might make it a part 2 series type thing. But I do have a coil that will probably work on this thing, and it's a electronic ignition module. So no points. Pretty much eliminate that bull crap. But we're going to see if we can't get it running as is. I'm going to prove to y'all that it had no spark. I doubt it magically made itself spark again after sitting even longer. But then again, you never know. So I'm going to hook the inline spark tester to it and show y'all that it indeed has no spark. And then while we're at it, we might do a compression test on it just to see what the compression looks like a dry compression test. Alright guys, I want you to look down there at that tester. There should be an orange glow. If there's not, that means you had no spark. Nothing. Alright, I'm not going to do a compression test yet. I want to get spark on it and then see if it'll run off its own power. If not, then we'll do a compression test. We'll just do it the way I usually do it. But I'm going to go ahead and pull the shroud off the top, the blower housing, whatever you want to call it, same dang thing. And I'll get right back to y'all. I don't really feel that I should waste the time to show you how to take that off. Because you really should know how to take it off anyway. Plus, this is a real run video. It's not a tutorial on how to get it running. So, it's just to see if it will run. Like a satisfying type video. So, I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'll be right back to you guys. Okay, so the shroud is off. And I already see one major issue. And I'll show you exactly what I mean. All this oil caked on this block and the coolant fins, that's really not good for your engine. And let me tell you why. The fins on this flywheel move air and cool off this entire engine. So it's not the oil in the engine that helps cool it. If you don't have fins on this flywheel, or if you run this engine without the blower housing, you'll burn it up. You will distort the block, distort the cylinder. It'll just overheat the engine, and that's no good. Absolutely no good. It destroys them. I'm not saying it's going to do it immediately, but it's not good for them, and it will destroy them eventually. I can't say how soon that it will, because I've never done it before. I don't purposely destroy engines, but I do know that it does destroy your engine. If you don't believe me, look it up. So when this is on, it's directing the air around. You also have usually coolant fins here, little shields that direct the air down, and it exits the bottom. Now over here we do have one, but on this side this mower wasn't designed with one. Now the newer models, later models were, probably because it was an issue. But all this oil acts as like an insulator to trap heat. So the heat coming off the block and stuff, that oil, all that caked on oil and dirt is going to trap it. So you can have this blower housing on and it could be blowing as much air as it wants. It's still not going to properly cool the engine down because this is acting as an insulator. So you got to make sure you don't have oil all over the block, because it's just gonna shorten the engine's lifespan. It's just a good force of habit to get into, and all these pine needles, they don't need to be up in there too. But for the demonstration of this video, it's not going to hurt the engine to run it for a second. Now for long durations of time, like 5 minutes and more, then you're starting to warm the engine up, and then that can start to be an issue. But just for a couple seconds, it's not going to hurt it at all. I'm sure if you made this thing run and die for a couple seconds, you could touch the exhaust and it wouldn't even be that hot. But don't do that. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this flywheel off. I got to pull the little debris shield off the screen, and it looks like I just got to undo a flywheel nut. I'm going to get my flywheel puller and whatnot to it, and I will get right back to you guys. Alrighty, you guys, so now that I have the debris screen off, I'm going to go ahead and spray some penetrating oil on the threads here, so that way they work their way down, and through the keyway as well. And I'm going to go ahead and get the impact and a socket, put it on there, and buzz that some gun off. Alrighty, so the socket, take the flywheel nut off. It's going to be a 15/16. Pretty standard for these little engines. And I'm using my DeWalt 20 Max XR, lithium brushless motor and impact driver. Best investment I ever made. Yep, it's not an impact wrench. It's an impact driver. And this thing, you would be surprised the kind of stuff it's busted loose that even my air impact can't. So, without further ado, let's see if it can do this one. It has 2 bars on it, but it should be able to pull it off. It might struggle, but it will get it. Or it won't struggle at all. It just buzzes it right off. Well, there you go. Flywheel nuts right on off. If you're wondering, this is a It's a DCF 887. Thing has been awesome. Absolutely amazing. Don't know what I'd do without it. Alrighty, so pull this flywheel nut on off. We'll set that in the air cleaner. Now, I'm going to turn this engine over and I'm going to inspect the keyway. And as you can see, it's not sheared at all, not partially sheared, never was even trying to shear. So that's good, that's a good sign. But now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get the... Those don't look like they're threaded. Either I'm going to use the puller to do this or a pry bar and a hammer. Whichever is... I don't really care, but let me go ahead and figure it out and I'll let y'all know what I'm going to use to get this thing off. Alrighty guys, so I'm using the Briggs and Stratton part number 19069 flywheel puller. It is for this engine. It's the smaller one out of the three. And the bolts on it are self-tapping. So that's going to work out perfectly since those holes are not threaded, but they will be. The fact that they're not threaded tells me that nobody's ever, well, unless they used a pry bar and a hammer, which was also something Briggs told you to do. But, yep, I got this one started. Going to get this one started next. Get them threaded down a certain length. And then start applying pressure. And we're going to pop this sun gun off. I'll get back to you guys. Alrighty, I just added some thicker lubricant. It's a little bit thicker than WD-40. It's actually for bicycle chains and stuff. But I just added it to the threads. You can add WD-40 too, doesn't matter. Motor oil, probably best. I added it to the threads. That way it can help with the cutting because it's kind of getting tight when it's starting to try to make them threads. So in order to help cut and help keep, you know, the bolt that is actually doing the threading, the actual tapering, to keep it, you know, partially not boogered up, because these bolts don't look like they're any grade. They're gradeless. They're not grade 5, not grade 8. They don't have any markings on them indicating what grade bolts they are. So it won't surprise me if it doesn't take very much to screw them up. So, but anyways, I'm going to continue this and I'll get back to y'all once I'm ready to pull this sun gun off. Alright you guys, I got the bolts started in as much as I think I should need them to be. So what I did was took the nuts on the bottom and just went ahead and just turned them all the way down to the flywheel. And these are the ones that we're going to be tightening. So we're going to tighten them down. We want to tighten both of them in increments. We don't want to tighten this one way down because it's going to cockeye it and it's going to want to pull the fucking threads. Oops, I just cussed. Well, I'll have to post a video anyway. It's going to want to pull the threads out with it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to adjust it in increments. This one down a little bit. And what it'll do is it will be pulling from this side and this side, but also applying pressure on this side. And what it's going to want to do is, since it's applying all this downward force on this piece and then pulling up on the flywheel itself, so basically what it's doing is it's applying force, downward force to the crankshaft and then pulling up on the flywheel. So that's the way it works. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. I apologize for cussing you all. This is not going to be made for kids after doing that. I don't have any way of editing that, but we'll just pretend it didn't happen. Alrighty, I'm going to go ahead and tighten these bolts down in increments until this flywheel pops loose. Well, you all, that didn't take much at all. I tightened this one up a little bit. Went over here and tightened this one up a little bit, and all of a sudden it popped loose. So now all we got to do is take our 3/8 and then pull this out. Now I did thread these in by hand with that wrench down there, but in order to get them out, I don't need to use the wrench. but this thing is going to have to stop turning on me. Boom. There's that one. And let's do this one now. Oh, that magnet's really good. Alrighty. Sorry if the camera's a little bit all over the place. I'm doing my best to hold it straight. Alright, the keyway should still be in the crankshaft. Now under this cover is the points and condenser. So if you pull a flywheel off an older engine, the main thing you can tell whether it has points and condenser or not is if you have ground wires screwed to your coil mounts. That's a telltale sign there. And plus, I can just look at the engine and be like, yeah, it definitely has points. It's definitely old enough. The date tells everything. Maybe the date's not on that side. Here we go. So, you have your model number, which in this case, let's try to, it is 92908. Type, you would tie that in with your model. It would be -0818, or is it a 9? It's an 8, -05. Now your code, you don't use that unless you're looking up parts and it says used before code date such and such or used after code date such and such. But we're looking at the code date for the day of manufacture. So the first set of digits is the year, the second set is the month, and the third set of 2 digits is the day. So we got year, month, day. So the year would be 1979, month, December the 21st of 1979. So you see, 1979, that's year, month, December, day, 21st. Now 05, ignore that. That's for the factory. I'm not sure if that means the assembly line or whatnot. I can't remember, but I do know that year, month, day, and then the last 2 digits, or how many ever digits are left, you just ignore those. So yeah, this engine was made December the 21st of 1979. So it just recently, a couple days ago, maybe a week ago, it just recently turned, I don't know how old, I'm not doing the math, but it just had a birthday recently. So, that's how you decode the date on these old engines. Now I'm going to pull this points cover off, and we're going to take a peek at them points. Wow, I am very freaking surprised. Look, I mean, look at this cover. It's very shiny. To be sitting outside for as long as it did, I mean, look at how good that thing looks. Of course, the points are over here. We're going to go ahead and take care of those. It looks very clean underneath. I'd be more surprised if it didn't want to start and run on these points and condenser, just because of the condition of the under. Usually it's corroded and all kinds of craziness under there, but I'm very, very surprised. Almost a little skeptical myself, like, why is it this clean? Doesn't make sense, but who knows. Alrighty, I'm going to go ahead and get these points cleaned off. There's plenty of videos on YouTube of how to do that. I'm not going to waste any more time to show you how. I'm going to go ahead and get those points cleaned up and get it back to you guys. Alrighty guys, so I got the points sanded down. I didn't sand any like posts for the coil or anything. I'm just going to throw it back together and hopefully it has spark without having to sand anything to ground it. Because honestly, it probably will be end up getting switched over to electronic ignition anyway. So, what I'm doing now is putting this debris screen back on, and because these little steel screws, these are steel screws going into a aluminum flywheel. These things, especially, I would say on anything really, But I know for a fact, because I work on so many Briggs and Stratton engines and have to take these debris screens off, a lot of the times they're Phillips heads, 2 or 3 of them, about 3 of them right here and towards the center, and you always strip the heads out on them because they're seized in there. These happen to be, well, obviously sockets. You can put a socket on it. They're just regular little bolts, little bolt screws, machine screws. I don't even know what you really call them, but anyways, I use my nut driver to get them out. But they were a little bit tough to get out. If it wasn't for the being that it had a bolt head, then I probably wouldn't have got them out. So what I'm doing is, since I did get them out without damaging anything, I'm putting some nickel anti-seize on them and then screwing them back in. That way they have no chance of seizing at all. Alrighty, you all. Let's see if we have spark. Ready? Moment of truth, you guys. See if we have spark. Yep. Looks like we have good spark. You know what that means? We'll pop that air cleaner off and spray a little bit of carburetor cleaner through it to see if it'll has enough compression to run and die, and then we'll go from there. So I'm going to go ahead and get this thing outside, get some of these tools put away, and I will get right back to you guys. Alright, it's going. Alright guys, we got spark, and let's just see if it'll run. That's all there is to this.